Hey friends, we are so grateful for the 99% of you who filled in the census, for that one campus group who didn't. But we're grateful. You want to know why? Because it helps us give accurate numbers. I've said this before, but for the first time really over the last 3 years, we're able to not just guess, but we're able to get accurate numbers in terms of where we are in Chi Alpha. Now we realize the census is becoming more extensive. That's really because we're trying to get accurate numbers to understand where we are as a movement. So I just want to say thank you so much. A-Rod, I'm so grateful to you for really taking the numbers,
Absolutely.
evaluating them, begin to look and say, what does this mean for us as a movement? I'd like to have Alex just take a little bit of time and share with all of us today at National Chi Alpha just some of the things that you've gleaned from our census numbers. So I'm going to step off. Alex.
Sure. Thank you, Scott, and thank you, training team, for helping compile and analyze this data. This information helps us gain an understanding of what's happening in our movement to make the best decisions to help reconcile students to Christ. Chi Alpha is both mystical and methodical. Regarding being mystical, we believe there are 4 non-negotiable principles to build ministry. We have to abide as promised by Jesus in John 15. If we abide, we will make disciples who make disciples who make disciples. Regarding the promise in Matthew 28, if we make disciples, we will always have the presence of Jesus. We must have unity, as the psalmist says in chapter 133, where unity is, there the Lord commands His blessing. And we must not have any sin in the camp. Utilizing the story of Achan in Joshua 7, the sin of the individual can impede the blessing of the nation. So analyzing numbers and figures to build strategies and refine methodologies, these are great, but they'll be useless if we're not abiding by these 4 non-negotiable principles. Likewise, Chi Alpha is not just mystical, we are methodical. This is why we also believe there's 4 non-negotiable methodical ways to build ministry. We get what we define, which is why it is essential to have language that's common and continuous. We get what we celebrate, which is why we should celebrate wins before we go into the next battle. And it's why we get what we allow, which is why we should be very slow at who we hire, from small group leaders to interns to directors. And last but not least, we get what we measure, which is why this census matters. If we don't know why something is working when it works, we're not going to know how to fix it when it breaks. So without further ado, let's analyze this census. Regarding total student involvement, Chi Alpha had about 15,122 students composing our ministry last year. This is down from about 3,000 the previous year, but in COVID, this is a significant win. So thank you, Chi Alpha, for your grit to make large group happen outside, to expand small groups, to take SALT on the road, to do whatever it takes to reconcile students to Christ. Well done to our 1,537 Chi Alpha staff from last year. Now let's look at some categories, specifically starting with small group. Last year, we had an average total student involvement of 55. This became a small group of 44, which then became an average large group of 30 students. This means students have the habit of becoming less committed to weekly gatherings, which is nothing new in Chi Alpha. We had a small group leader to member ratio of 1 leader for every 4 students, and a staff to student leader ratio of 1 missionary for every 9.8 students. Our small group leadership retention was 69%, which means 7 out of every 10 leaders who started with us in August finished with us in May. We had a small group leadership replication rate of 59%, meaning 6 out of every 10 small group leaders this past year produced a new small group leader for the next school year. Regarding our student demographic, 44% of our students were male, 56% were female, 59% are white, 41% were diverse. When it comes to church, out of the 15,000 students connected to Chi Alpha, 12,551 did not come from an Assemblies of God background, which is 83% of Chi Alpha that has not been a part of the Assemblies of God before. In other words, Chi Alpha is the pipeline for the Assemblies of God at large. Looking at cross-cultural missions, we had 1,300 international students this past year. 58% were connected to small group, which is good news. 10% were small group leaders, which is developing news, as we try to move international students from friendship to leadership. It is very difficult to analyze mission trips in a world that is predominantly closed, so we analyzed mission trips in pre-COVID years. In 2019, we discovered that the median size of a Chi Alpha that went on U.S. mission trips was 60, and the median size of a Chi Alpha that did not go on U.S. mission trips was 16. Going back to our COVID year, although we may not be able to go overseas, Any group can have a missions emphasis week, which is as simple as saying it's Monday, we're going to pray for a missionary. It's Tuesday, we're going to give to missions. It's Wednesday, we're going to hear from a missionary. For campuses that had a missions week last year, they were 2.5 times larger in total small group involvement than groups that had no missions emphasis whatsoever. In other words, when Jesus said, go out and make disciples with the clause of all nations, or be my witnesses with the clause of to the ends of the earth, Jesus is connecting disciple-making groups and cross-cultural missions as interdependent. We tell students, if they wait till they have a job to give, they're never going to give. Likewise, this data is revealing if Chi Alpha groups wait for staff or wait for more staff to go to the ends of the earth, they will never go. And groups that have discipleship and cross-cultural missions are healthier than groups that only have discipleship. Looking at staff demographic, Chi Alpha is looking to expand our value of diversity into every platform and in every decision-making table. Regarding every platform, 18% of the time, a woman who is not the director filled a Chi Alpha pulpit last year. 9% of the time, a minority who is not the director filled a Chi Alpha pulpit last year. Another way to say that is on any given Chi Alpha large group night, one out of every 5 pulpits is filled with a woman who's not the director, and 1 out of every 10 pulpits is filled with a minority who is not the director. Regarding diversity at every decision-making table, 25% of our executive ministry team is minority, 12.5% of our area directors are minority, 8.6% of our district directors are minority. This is another reason that we value you filling out the census. We have the most accurate look at Chi Alpha's value of diversity that we have seen yet, and this reality merits that we continue to pray and continue to work towards having diversity at every level. Let's look at large group. We had 8,744 students in large group, which is almost cut in half from what we had in the previous year, because many groups could not have a large group or because they were cap sized with 5 to 15 per campus guidelines. We discovered 72% of our groups are under 50 students. The year before, when COVID interrupted us during the school year, 71% of our groups are under 50 students. 3 years before, when everything was normal, 70% of our groups were under 50 students. And the vast majority in any year are specifically under 25 students. Likewise, we noticed in the past 2 years, 10% of our Chi Alpha groups are reaching 45% of our total students in Chi Alpha. This creates 2 different Chi Alpha profiles, with 90% of Chi Alpha being composed of a group with 33 students, led by 4 staff, 2 of which are leading small group and 2 of which are not leading small group, creating 1 missionary for every 8.2 students. There is a time when staff may need to transition to leading a small group exclusively of small group leaders, but the era of 30 to 50 students is not that time. This is where we want staff leading small groups to provide a demonstration of discipleship before and ideally after a delegation of discipleship. Right now, 48% of our staff are leading small groups, and the majority, 52%, are not. Based on these census results, I would like to recommend 3 ideas. Number 1, emphasize missions through going, giving, praying, and welcoming. Go out into the world, and if the world is closed, go stateside. And if stateside during a pandemic is risky, have a missions week. Chi Alphas that have disciple-making groups and cross-cultural missions are healthier than groups that only have discipleship. Number 2, if we have more staff leading more small groups, we will see more fruit. Please stay leading small groups for as long as you can, and we will see big fruitfulness. Let's demonstrate discipleship before we delegate discipleship and then demonstrate it some more. And last but not least, a 69% leadership replication rate is good. And if leadership training class is the catalyst that moves everything forward, let's not limit this class to once a year. We can have spring, we can have summer, we can even have fall leadership training programs. More leadership training will create more small group leaders. Thank you, Chi Alpha, for filling out the census. This information is going to help us make better decisions as we all work together to reconcile students to Christ, transform the university, the marketplace, and the world.
Hey, thanks, Alex. Boy, you can see there's a lot of information in there, and it is critical information. Some of it's encouraging, some of it's alarming. I want to encourage you, though, as a Chi Alpha missionary and many of you as teams and interns, take a little bit of time. If you need to go back and listen to this or even break this video down some, take a little bit of time, listen to those statistics, see where your group lies in those statistics, and begin to discuss how do we disciple more university students to fulfill their purpose and God's global plan. I believe the Lord just wants to blow this out of the water. I really, really do. So I'm compelled now more than ever before. May the Lord bless you today. May He cause you to be fruitful. Let's go reconcile students to Christ.